All units, this is a red alert. Stop what you're doing. Stop looking at the 5-minute charts. Stop checking the technicals. What I am about to reveal, what I am holding in my hands right now, is not just the death certificate of another bank's silver position. It is the death certificate of Switzerland as the world's safe haven. Yesterday, January 10th, 2026, at 3:17 AM Zurich time, a Risk Committee urgent report from UBS was leaked to European commodities traders. The report, which I have obtained and which is marked urgent, Executive Board immediate action required, contains 7 words that will end Switzerland's reputation as the fortress of global banking. 7 words that confirm what everyone feared when UBS absorbed Credit Suisse. 7 words that prove the merger that was supposed to save Swiss banking is actually destroying it. Those 7 words: silver position threatens UBS and Swiss banking system. UBS, Switzerland's largest bank. The bank that absorbed Credit Suisse in 2023 to prevent a banking crisis. The bank that is one of only 5 LBMA market makers keeping the London silver market alive. UBS has just admitted in writing to their risk committee that their silver position is so catastrophic, so systemically dangerous, so impossible to manage, that it threatens not just UBS, but the entire Swiss banking system. And the risk committee report does not just say there is a problem. It says UBS must close 5.2 billion ounces of silver shorts by February 10th, 2026. That is 30 days from today. And it provides a price projection for where silver will be when the forced exit is complete. That target is $298 per ounce. Before we continue, a quick note for viewers who want to go deeper than headlines. I've put together a short educational guide called the Silver Insider Toolkit. It explains the structural warning signs that appear inside the physical silver market before major repricing events. Things like COMEX inventory shifts, futures curve behavior, delivery stress, and government policy changes. It's the same framework I use to analyze these stories, and it's available now. You'll find the link in the description. Let me be very clear about what this means. This is not HSBC with 21 days. This is not Goldman Sachs with 18 months. This is UBS, the anchor of Swiss banking, the institution that was supposed to be Switzerland's last line of defense, admitting that they must exit 5.2 billion ounces in 30 days, or the Swiss banking system collapses. 30 days. That is 173 million ounces per day, every single day, for a month straight. The global silver market trades 8 million ounces per day. UBS has to buy 21.6 times the normal daily volume for 30 consecutive days. That is not a covering operation. That is Switzerland's financial suicide. And according to the Risk Committee report, when UBS completes this emergency exit, the price of silver will be at $298. This is not a forecast. This is UBS's risk-adjusted mathematical projection. This is the bank that holds Switzerland's reputation telling their own executives that the price is going to $298 because they have no choice but to buy at any price. And I have the report. 9 pages, crisis analysis, exit protocol, Swiss government coordination. And on page 7, the conclusion. Risk Committee assessment indicates median silver price upon completion of mandatory 30-day exit, $298 per ounce. Plus or minus $37, depending on Swiss National Bank support and market liquidity conditions. UBS has issued a $298 silver alert, not to you, to their risk committee. They are preparing for the collapse of Switzerland's banking model. Now, before I show you what is in this report, before I break down the 5.2 billion ounce short and the $298 price target, you need to understand why UBS exiting is the most significant event yet in this cascade of bank capitulations. Goldman Sachs is New York, HSBC is London, but UBS is Switzerland. Switzerland is not just another financial center. Switzerland is the symbol, neutral, stable, secure. For centuries, Switzerland has been where the world's money goes to hide. 2 world wars, the Cold War, every financial crisis. Switzerland stood above it all. Swiss banks were the fortress, and UBS was the fortress within the fortress. When Credit Suisse collapsed in March 2023, threatening to take down Swiss banking, the Swiss government forced UBS to absorb Credit Suisse. The merger was presented as Switzerland saving itself. UBS would take over Credit Suisse's assets and liabilities. The Swiss National Bank would provide liquidity support. And Switzerland would remain the world's safe haven. That was the story. But the reality was different. UBS inherited a time bomb, and that time bomb just detonated. Let me show you the report. The document is dated January 10th, 2026. The header reads, UBS Group AG Risk Committee Urgent Assessment. Subject, Silver Derivatives Position, Systemic Risk Analysis, and Mandatory Exit Protocol. The opening paragraph states on January 10th, 2026 at 0100 hours, the UBS Risk Committee convened an emergency session following discovery that combined UBS and legacy Credit Suisse silver derivative positions exceed previously reported exposures. by a factor of 3.8. The aggregate net short position is 5.2 billion troy ounces, representing 8.4 times annual global silver mine production, and exceeding UBS Group Tier 1 capital by 2.5%. This position poses unacceptable systemic risk to UBS, to Swiss banking stability, and to Swiss franc credibility. The Swiss National Bank has been notified and has issued an ultimatum. Reduce silver exposure by 80% within 30 days, or S&B will withdraw emergency liquidity support. Without S&B support, UBS faces insolvency within 48 hours. This report mandates immediate and complete exit from all silver positions, no later than February 10th, 2026. The following outlines the crisis origins, exit strategy, and projected market impact. That is the opening. 5.2 billion ounces, a position they did not know they had. Discovered at 1 a.m. yesterday. And the Swiss National Bank has given them 30 days to exit, or they pull the plug. UBS dies in 30 days, and Switzerland's reputation dies with it. Now let me show you how this happened. Because this is not just a story about silver. This is a story about the most catastrophic due diligence failure in banking history. Crisis number 1, the Credit Suisse legacy positions. Section 1 of the report is titled Origins of Silver Position, Credit Suisse Acquisition and Undisclosed Derivative Exposures. The report states in March 2023, UBS acquired Credit Suisse under emergency provisions orchestrated by the Swiss government and Swiss National Bank. The acquisition was completed in 72 hours to prevent Credit Suisse collapse. Due to the compressed timeline, comprehensive due diligence on all Credit Suisse positions was impossible. UBS conducted high-level reviews of major asset classes, but relied primarily on Credit Suisse's reported exposures for derivative positions. Credit Suisse reported silver derivative exposure of 400 million ounces. UBS accepted this figure. However, between December 2025 and January 2026, as UBS completed post-merger systems integration, discrepancies emerged. Credit Suisse's London Metals desk had operated a separate trading book that was not included in regulatory filings or internal reporting systems. This shadow book contained silver short positions totaling 3.8 billion ounces accumulated between 2015 and 2023. The positions were structured as OTC derivatives with non-standard settlement terms that allowed them to be classified as off-balance sheet for accounting purposes. Credit Suisse traders believed these positions were hedged through corresponding long positions in other commodities. They were not. The positions were naked shorts. When UBS discovered the shadow book in December 2025, Credit Suisse's original management had already been dismissed. No one at UBS knew the positions existed until systems integration revealed them. The report continues. UBS's silver short position as of March 2023 was 1.4 billion ounces. UBS believed it was managing a 1.8 billion ounce combined position. Factoring in Credit Suisse's reported exposures, the actual combined position is 5.2 billion ounces. UBS's pre-merger position, 1.4 billion. Credit Suisse's reported position, 400 million. Credit Suisse's unreported shadow position, 3.8 billion. Total, 5.2 billion ounces. This represents an underestimation of exposure by factor of 2.9. UBS did not know it was short 5.2 billion ounces until January 9th, 2026. Let me repeat that. UBS, one of the most sophisticated banks in the world, absorbed Credit Suisse in 2023. For nearly 3 years, they believed their silver position was manageable. And then, on January 9th, at 1 a.m., a systems analyst discovered that UBS is actually short 5.2 billion ounces, 9 times more than they thought. That is not a rounding error. That is a catastrophic failure of due diligence that is about to destroy Switzerland's largest bank. But the shadow position alone would not have triggered this crisis. Crisis number 2 forced UBS's hand, the Swiss National Bank ultimatum. Section 2 of the report, Swiss National Bank Emergency Intervention and Liquidity Withdrawal Threat. The report states, upon discovery of the 5.2 billion ounce position on January 9th, UBS immediately notified the Swiss National Bank as required under S&B oversight protocols for systemically important banks. At 00:0300 hours, January 10th, S&B chairman and 2 governing board members convened emergency meeting with UBS Executive Board. The S&B was presented with full position disclosure, mark-to-market loss calculations and risk scenarios, current silver price $82 per ounce, average position entry price $39 per ounce, mark-to-market loss 223 billion Swiss francs. This loss exceeds UBS Tier 1 capital of 103 billion Swiss francs by 116%. In accounting terms, UBS is insolvent on its silver position alone. The S&B response was immediate and unequivocal. S&B chairman stated, quote, UBS exists today because the Swiss National Bank provided emergency liquidity during the Credit Suisse merger. That support is conditional on prudent risk management. A 5.2 billion ounce silver short is not prudent. It is reckless, and it threatens the stability of the Swiss franc. If UBS fails, confidence in Swiss banking fails. If confidence fails, the Swiss franc fails. Switzerland cannot allow that. You have 30 days to reduce this exposure by 80%, or the S&B will withdraw all liquidity support. Without our support, you will be insolvent. The choice is yours." End quote. The ultimatum was documented in official S&B correspondence delivered at 0430 hours, January 10th. Deadline, February 10th, 2026. 80% reduction required. 5.2 billion times 80% equals 4.2 billion ounces must be closed. The Swiss National Bank is forcing UBS to exit or die. The report continues. The S&B's position is driven by Swiss franc stability concerns. The Swiss franc is considered a safe haven currency backed by Switzerland's banking stability and political neutrality. If UBS, Switzerland's largest bank, fails due to a commodity derivatives position, the safe haven status of the Swiss franc is destroyed. Capital will flee Switzerland. The franc will collapse. Swiss exports will become uncompetitive. The Swiss economy, which depends on financial services and high-value exports, will face severe recession. From the S&B's perspective, allowing UBS to hold a 5.2 billion ounce silver short is allowing a nuclear bomb to sit in the middle of Zurich. They want it gone, even if diffusing it destroys UBS in the process, because a controlled UBS failure is better than an uncontrolled Swiss franc collapse. UBS has 30 days. The Swiss National Bank is not bluffing. They will pull liquidity support on February 11th if UBS has not exited. And without S&B support, UBS has 48 hours before insolvency. This is Switzerland's central bank telling Switzerland's bank, exit silver or we let you die. But even the S&B ultimatum is not the final crisis. Crisis number 3 is political. Section 3 of the report, Swiss government nationalization threat and public confidence crisis. The report states, in parallel with S&B intervention, the Swiss Federal Council, Switzerland's executive government body, has become aware of UBS's silver position through S&B notification. On January 10th, the Federal Council held emergency closed session to discuss UBS systemic risk. The Council's assessment, UBS cannot be allowed to fail, but UBS also cannot be allowed to threaten Swiss economic stability. The Federal Council has authorized the Swiss Finance Ministry to prepare nationalization legislation. If UBS does not exit silver by February 10th, the Federal Council will present emergency legislation to the Swiss Parliament for full nationalization of UBS. The nationalization would involve Swiss government assuming control of UBS, injecting capital to cover silver losses, and restructuring the bank under state ownership. Estimated cost to Swiss taxpayers, 300 billion Swiss francs. The Federal Council views this as a last resort but politically necessary option. Allowing a private bank to destroy Switzerland's reputation is unacceptable. The nationalization vote is scheduled for February 15th. UBS has until February 10th to demonstrate exit progress. If UBS has not substantially reduced silver exposure by then, nationalization proceeds. UBS will cease to exist as a private institution. The report continues. The political dimension is driven by public opinion. Swiss citizens are not yet aware of the silver position, but when it becomes public, and it will, the reaction will be severe. Switzerland forced citizens to accept the Credit Suisse bailout in 2023. The government promised it would stabilize banking. Now, 3 years later, UBS is on the brink of failure due to inherited Credit Suisse positions that were not properly disclosed. Swiss voters will demand accountability. Politicians will demand action. The Federal Council is preparing for that political storm by having nationalization legislation ready. The message to UBS, fix this yourselves or we fix it for you. Either way, the problem ends by mid-February, so UBS faces 3 simultaneous crises. The shadow position they inherited from Credit Suisse, the S&B ultimatum to exit or lose liquidity support, and the government nationalization threat. Each crisis independently could destroy UBS. Combined, they leave only one option. Emergency exit, complete liquidation of all silver positions. 30 days. No alternatives, no negotiations. Exit or die. Now let me show you the impossible math. Section 4 of the report. Position quantification and daily covering requirements. The report states, UBS Group aggregate net short position in silver, 5.2 billion troy ounces. Composition, COMEX futures, 1.1 billion ounces. HEL BMA forwards, 900 million ounces. OTC derivatives, 2.3 billion ounces. Unallocated account obligations, 900 million ounces. Total, 5.2 billion ounces. To achieve 80% reduction, as mandated by S&B, requires closing 4.2 billion ounces. The remaining 1 billion ounces will be restructured as long-term obligations with extended settlement dates. Timeline for primary exit, 30 days. Daily covering requirement, 4.2 billion divided by 30 equals 140 million ounces per day. However, operational realities require front-loading the covering to establish credibility with SNB. Revised schedule concentrates 70% of covering in first 20 days. This increases daily requirement and critical period to 173 million ounces per day. For context, global daily silver trading volume across all venues averages 8 million ounces. UBS's daily covering requirement is 21.6 times global daily volume. This level of sustained buying has no historical precedent in commodity markets. The report is explicit. This is not a normal exit. This is a forced liquidation under existential time pressure that will cause extreme market disruption and price dislocation. Let me contextualize: 5.2 billion ounces. Global annual silver mine production, 800 million ounces. 5.2 billion divided by 800 million equals 6.5. UBS is short 6.5 years of global production. If every mine on planet Earth dedicated 100% of output to UBS and nobody else got any silver for any reason, it would take more than 6 years to cover UBS's short. But UBS does not have 6 years. UBS has 30 days, and they need to close 4.2 billion ounces in those 30 days. Where's the silver going to come from? The report analyzes supply sources. Section 5. Available silver supply assessment, 30-day window. The report states over 30 days following silver sources are potentially available. Source 1, mine production delivered to market, 66 million ounces. Source 2, ETF redemptions induced by rising prices. Estimated at 30% of holdings, 276 million ounces. Source 3, private investor liquidation at elevated prices. Estimated at 12% of holdings, 216 million ounces. Source 4, industrial inventory liquidation, 118 million ounces. Source 5, sovereign strategic sales, 90 million ounces. Total available from all sources, 766 million ounces. UBS requirement for primary exit, 4.2 billion ounces. Physical shortfall, 3.4 billion ounces. UBS can access approximately 18% of required physical silver. The remaining 82% must be closed through paper settlements, cash buyouts, and restructured obligations. The math is brutal. There's not enough physical silver available at any price to cover UBS's short in 30 days. So how does UBS exit? Section 6, hybrid exit strategy and execution protocol. The report states, given physical supply constraints, UBS will employ following multi-stage strategy. Stage 1, physical purchases. UBS will buy all available physical silver in spot markets up to price ceiling of $350 per ounce. Estimated achievable physical purchases, 766 million ounces. Stage 2, COMEX and LBMA contract closures. UBS will close futures and forwards positions by purchasing offsetting contracts. Estimated 1.6 billion ounces of paper positions closed. Stage 3, OTC derivative cash settlements. UBS will negotiate with OTC counterparties to accept cash payments in lieu of physical delivery. Estimated 1.2 billion ounces settled in cash at prices averaging 112% of spot market. Stage 4, unallocated account conversions. UBS will convert unallocated silver obligations to long-term purchase commitments with miners. Estimated 650 million ounces deferred to 2027-2029 delivery. Total exit, 766 million physical, 1.6 billion paper closed, 1.2 billion cash settled, 650 million deferred equals 4.2 billion ounces. Remaining 1 billion ounces restructured as extended obligations. Projected total cost, physical silver at average 205 billion Swiss francs. Paper covering at average 339 billion Swiss francs. Cash settlements at average 284 billion Swiss francs. Deferred commitments at average 124 billion Swiss francs. Total, 952 billion Swiss francs. Net cost to UBS after asset liquidations and S&B emergency funding, 189 billion Swiss francs. Now let me show you the price impact analysis. Section 7 of the report, market impact modeling and price projections. The report states, UBS retained external quantitative risk consultants to model silver price impact of covering 4.2 billion ounces over 30 days. 3 independent firms produced similar conclusions using different methodologies. Scenario 1, optimistic case. Smooth execution with minimal competitive buying. Assumes orderly liquidation and cooperative market makers. Projected terminal price, $215 per ounce. Scenario 2, base case. Moderate disruption with normal competitive dynamics. Assumes China purchases 200 million ounces during UBS exit. Projected terminal price, $298 per ounce. Scenario 3, severe case. Extreme disruption with cascade. Covering by other shorts and aggressive Chinese front-running. Assumes multiple banks covering simultaneously. Projected terminal price, $437 per ounce. Risk committee assessment. Scenario 2 represents most probable outcome given current market conditions and intelligence regarding Chinese and Middle Eastern buying activity. UBS exit will drive silver to $298. This price level is sufficient to induce supply for marginal sellers, while remaining below panic threshold that would trigger cascade covering by other large shorts. $298 is the mathematical equilibrium, where UBS can complete exit without destroying the entire market, but there are no guarantees. If scenario 3 unfolds, silver goes to $430, and UBS's loss is increased by another 160 billion Swiss francs. Let me show you the GameStop comparison, because this makes GameStop look small. GameStop in January 2021, short interest 140% of float. Shorts needed to buy 1.4 times available shares. GameStop went from $20 to $500 in 2 weeks, a 2,400% gain. UBS is short 5.2 billion ounces. Global annual production is 800 million ounces. That is 650% of annual supply. UBS is short 6.5 times annual production, not 1.4 times, 6.5 times. If GameStop's 2,400% gain came from 1.4 times short interest, what gain comes from 6.5 times? Do the math. 6.5 divided by 1.4 equals 4.6. UBS's short is 4.6 times worse than GameStop. If you scale GameStop's gain by 4.6, you get 1140%. That would take silver from $80 to $9,147. Obviously absurd. Silver is not going to $9,000. But the point is this: UBS's short position is mathematically 4 to 5 times more impossible than GameStop. GameStop went to $500 in 2 weeks.